Hey, well, hello everyone, and welcome to my kitchen. My name is Hannah, and I am a nutrition educator with Cornell Cooperative Extension of Jefferson County. And this is our video in our series, What Can I Cook With? Where at the beginning of these videos, you all were giving me suggestions from your pantry, different ingredients like canned tuna, tofu, that old bag of beans, and I showed you some different things that you could make with them. We recently switched into kind of a new What Can I Cook With? And it's what can I cook with all those gorgeous seasonal vegetables and produce that I'm seeing at farmers markets, farm stands, CSAs, your local grocery stores, in your own garden maybe even. So now each week we've been talking about some different seasonal produce. And just a little disclaimer, this is seasonal produce to northern New York. So if you're living elsewhere in the country, you might be a little bit ahead of us or a little bit behind us, but hopefully there's going to be some good overlap there. So I'm excited for today because we are going to be cooking with bell peppers. And this one came in my CSA box. I just picked it up half an hour ago, and it's exceeded my expectation. It's really beautiful and gorgeous. So I'm excited to cook with it today and to also cook with a couple other local ingredients. So if you're with us, I think a few weeks ago, I did zucchini, and you've probably been noticing that there is a plethora of zucchini out there. So adding zucchini to everything. And then also, I realize I don't talk a lot about local meats, but I am cooking with some local turkey. And you can see I got ground turkey from a local livestock farmer, or I guess not livestock, but local turkey farmer. And you can see it looks just like what you would get from the grocery store. It's ground up. It comes in this, oh, yikes. It comes in this nice little package and is just as slippery as normal turkey. So let me put that aside and wash the turkey off my hands real quick. We're off to a good start. I can already tell it. Awesome. So yeah, when you're out looking for local produce, like I've been talking about a lot, keep an eye out for your local meats as well and other local products. Jams, honeys, all those good sorts of things. Because a lot of times they do have the same benefits as what you would find from local produce, where you get to know the person who's producing it, and a lot of times it's better flavor because it's fresher, and you're boosting the local economy, all lots of good things. So without further ado, before I start rambling even more, let's get cooking. So I don't think I said what we are making with the green bell peppers, but we are going to be making some garden sloppy joes. I think I told you all the pieces of it, and I didn't tell you what the final product is. So special reveal. Maybe one week I'll have to do that. I'll just start cooking, and y'all are going to have to guess what I'm actually making. And hopefully I'll know. But all right. So let me go ahead and angle you down. So I got my bell pepper, got my chef's knife. And if you all have a great way to chop bell peppers, please feel free to share. The way that I found it be easiest for me is I'm just going to take the top off like this. Got my two halves and got my compost bowl. And I'm just going to pull out the seeds and kind of pull out that kind of fleshy spines in the center there. I usually don't use it, just it has kind of a funkier texture, doesn't have a lot of flavor, or it can be pretty bitter. So I'm just scooping it out like that. I'll kind of brush the seeds off my top bit here. And we don't want any of this to go to waste. So just kind of cutting around the stem. You can see if you have kind of fleshy bits, you can peel them off, but I usually don't find that to be too much trouble. So then just doing some nice slicing and dicing. I'll do more of the slicing first and then the dicing. Right. So I've got just going for a little dice there. You could also leave them in, if you didn't want to put this whole bell pepper in the garden sloppy joes, you could leave some cut up in slices. Really good with some hummus to go with your carrot sticks. And it can be a little bit awkward to cut, so just go slow. And be careful. See, you might get little pieces that you want to chop off there. Yeah, so just go slow. Don't feel like you need to, keep it in one position and not move it. Feel free to twist it around. Just really keeping an eye out. All right. So bell peppers, regardless of their color, are a really good source of fiber. I think we've talked about fiber quite a bit on here. It is one of my favorite things to talk about, sometimes to the chagrin of my dinner partners. But fiber is really important in keeping our gastrointestinal system moving. You can think of it as a brush, kind of cleaning out our intestines, keeping everything running smoothly. And a lot of Americans do not get enough fiber in their diet. So you'll see we're adding a lot of vegetable to today's meal. Vegetables are an excellent source of fiber, as are fruits. So those are a really big benefit. And so in addition to kind of keeping everything running smoothly, fiber has been linked to a decreased risk of high blood pressure and heart disease. So lots of good benefits come with fiber. If you need one more, fiber also helps you keep you feeling full. So if you're trying to, maybe eat less or just eat more healthfully, eating fiber-rich products such as fruits, vegetables, whole grains are a great option. There's a reason why oatmeal helps you get through your morning, is it's got that fiber in it, which helps you stay full. So lots of good things. And then, of course, fruits and vegetables and bell peppers have a lot of really important vitamins and minerals. So a lot of vegetables have potassium in them, which you might also know from bananas. And this is also another nutrient that a lot of Americans aren't getting enough of. Just being aware that you don't need to count, oh man, my bell pepper has 59 milligrams of vitamin A in it. I need to go out and get, and these are completely fake numbers. I need to go get X amount more. You just, eat a wide variety of vegetables, as wide as you can, get all the colors in, and you will be set. Make half your plate fruits and veggies, all those good things. All right, I've got this gorgeous pile here. I'm going to go ahead and start sauteing my vegetables. So let me go ahead and turn you around. So in addition to my bell peppers, I had my zucchini, and then to get some orange, I have some carrots. So I'm going to leave this on this back burner here because you'll see I'm going to do something in the front burner. But just going to add a little bit of olive oil. If you're measuring it out, maybe about a teaspoon. Might need to add a little bit more. I am using quite a bit of vegetables, so we will see how much I actually need. Of course, I'm going to add in my chopped onion. Get those good flavors going on. Oh, geez. I hope this pan's big enough. We will see. All right. So I've got that going on. I'm going to go ahead and add in my carrot. Going to add in this beautiful bell pepper. And I'm also going to add in my zucchini at this point. Okay, we'll make it fit. It'll be great. Okay. I'm just going to add a little bit more because that was a lot of vegetables. They will cook down a little bit. And then I'll add in my meat. I did just want to note there is going to be tomatoes in this recipe, and that's why I'm not using my bigger cast iron. Sometimes when you cook with a lot of tomatoes in your cast iron, it can give kind of a metallic taste to whatever you're cooking. So I'm not always super great about keeping the tomatoes out of my cast iron, but I'm trying. So just get it all nice coated in oil. You can see the zucchini in particular have a lot of water in them. So they're really going to release some of that moisture and help kind of cook our vegetables through. Great. I'm just going to let those cook down just a little bit. And I'm going to angle you back this way. So one more vegetable that we will be adding is going to be our mushrooms. So I'm using some canned mushrooms today. You could absolutely slice up your own mushrooms and use those. I couldn't find any mushrooms that were low sodium. So if you remember that we talked about before, many Americans are getting too much sodium in their diet, and too much sodium is linked to an increased risk for high blood pressure and the connected stroke, heart disease, heart attacks, all those things we are wanting to avoid. So trying to reduce our sodium when we can is important. And one place that we can do that is in our canned goods. So looking for our low sodium, no salt added. You'll see on the tomatoes I'm using, I did find no salt added ones. But, it's not always an option, and we do want to make sure that we're getting all the benefits of vegetables, so canned is a great option. We just want to make sure we give them a good rinse, and this can actually remove a lot of the sodium. So I kind of cleaned up this side of my kitchen today, so I'm actually going to turn you so you can see what's going on over here. Let's see, I hope it's as clean as I think it is. Okay, so there you got my sink. I've got my handy little colander here, my little strainer. And I'm just going to go ahead and dump in my mushrooms. Get all those good little pieces out. And then we really just rinse it with some cold water. And make sure you're pretty thorough. You can, kind of squeeze your mushrooms. Swish them around a little bit. Perfect. And then we're just going to let it drain. So let me shake it a little bit. Mine fits pretty well, so it's going to keep it off the bottom of my kitchen sink by putting it on the can. So I'm just going to set it in there for a little bit. Sometimes your colander might have a nice little foot on the bottom that will keep it raised up, but we want to keep our food off the bottom of our kitchen sink. Not always the cleanest place. All right. Just give this a couple more good stirs. Okay. And it's softening up, as you can see. So I'm going to go ahead and add in my ground turkey. So, yes, I'm going to do that. Okay. I'm trying to visually judge if this is going to be enough space, and it's going to work. You could maybe would want to use a larger pan. So I'm just going to kind of break it up, mix it in with my vegetables. So again, if you're getting your meat from a local farmer, a lot of times they will let you know if it's kind of like a lean ground turkey. Sometimes I've seen it even, depending on the size of their operation, they'll be able to tell you if it's like 93% lean, 7% fat, like you might see at the grocery store. Otherwise, you might not really be able to tell. So choosing a leaner meat such as ground turkey or ground chicken would be a good call. You could also, if you're worried about the saturated fat in your meat, you're not really sure if it's a lean ground meat or not, you could cook your meat in a separate saute pan over here, get it nice and browned, and you will be able to see the fat on the bottom. So you can, I think I've shown it on here before, but tilt your pan, move all the meat to one side, and kind of wipe up the fat with a paper towel, or you could just gently scoop up the meat, put it in your pan, and leave the fat in your other pan. Those are some strategies. All right. Just mixing this up, and I have this on about medium high right here now. And this is a great recipe for using, whatever vegetables you have going on. I have The bell pepper and zucchini are in season up here. I think broccoli would also be really delicious if you just had some thawed broccoli florets that you wanted to toss in here. You want to toss in some beans. You want to toss in some peas. Oh, by beans, like pinto beans, black beans, or also just green beans. I just realized those are coming up in my garden. I think I've mentioned on here that I've been growing a garden this year, and this is my first year growing just from the seeds. I didn't get the transplants or anything like that, so I started from seeds. Some of them I started in my house, some of them I started out in my garden, and it's been going kind of slow. I've heard that we're having a little bit of a dry year this year, so that's what I'm blaming it on. So we're just gonna let this cook for a sec. But I finally have been starting to get zucchini, so I can't remember if I cooked with one on here before, but you pick them when they're about a finger long. So I was really excited to pick my first one, and I had another one coming up, and yesterday I decided it was the day I was going to pick it. So I'd been watching it all week, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to let it get a little bit longer, and then I'm going to pick it. And I'm going to be so excited to have my second zucchini come. I'm going to send a picture to my mom and my grandpa and everyone who might even care a little bit. So I went out yesterday morning when I was watering. You want to water in the morning, I learned. And I went to look for it, and it was gone. And I'm not sure if it was an animal, because there was some digging around my tomatoes too, but it was really disappointing. I'm lucky that I have so many zucchinis coming in my CSA box and things to get my fix, but there's something so special about being able to grow it yourself, and I kind of missed out on that. But I have at least one more coming, though I think there's ants or something attacking my vine. But it's been fun. If you haven't gardened before and you have the space to do so, I've got some going on in my bush zucchini growing in some containers, just trying a bunch of different things to try to get something out of it. But even if I get no vegetables, I know it got me outside, and it made me happy. It gave me something to look forward to before my hopes and dreams were dashed. Anyway, all right. So you can see my meat is browned, and we are going to cook it longer. So if you feel like it might not be food safe yet, we will cook it more to get it food safe. But we just want it mostly browned. Our vegetables should be a little bit soft. That's especially going to be kind of our carrots going on. But all right, we got all this mixed together. Then we're going to add in those tomatoes I was talking about. So I've got 8 ounces of our tomato sauce, or kind of more, sauce is the right word, but the really like the crushed up tomatoes where there's not these big chunks. So 8 ounces there. Get all my tomato bits out. And then we need 1 can. So it's funny, whenever I see recipes, they always say 1 can or 15 ounces, and a lot of the cans I see are 14.5, so it will be great. That's kind of a useless aside. Anyway, this one we want more like whole tomatoes, chunkier tomatoes. So it might either say chunky tomatoes, tomato pieces. I got stewed tomatoes with, which you'll see are kind of bigger pieces of the tomato. The stewed usually just have a slightly different taste. You can see it's kind of these cross sections of tomatoes that are included there. And we can't forget about our mushrooms. But really, if you only have one type of tomatoes, that will be fine. I think for mine, I might even need to add a little bit more. We'll see. If you're using zucchini, you might not need to add anything extra because it will release enough moisture. But if you only have 1 can of tomatoes and you're not using zucchini or another type of veggie that releases a lot of moisture, you might need to add just, a little bit of chicken broth, a little bit of veggie broth, some water. But that's going to be easy to play by ear. Okay, and then we're going to add in a 1/4 cup of barbecue sauce. So I've got that here. Go ahead and add this in.
So one thing to note about barbecue sauce, we talk a lot about how looking for low sodium varieties of our processed foods, of our condiments, and things like that. But especially for barbecue sauce, ketchup, some of these more surprising things, you also need to keep an eye out for your added sugars. So, where is my can? Let me see. So now I'm giving you another thing to look at. You all have graduated, you've watched me enough times that you're gonna look at something else. So you can see even on my tomatoes here, the stewed tomatoes, you can look at the added sugars. So this one has 4 grams of added sugar, and which is going to be kind of 8% of your daily value if you're eating 2,000 calories a day. So one rule of thumb that we talk about when it comes to percent daily values is if it's 5% or low, or 5% or less, that's considered low. That's a low source of whatever nutrient you're looking at. And if it's 20% or more, that's high. So some of these things on the nutrition facts label, like dietary fiber, or some of the different vitamins and minerals that are listed on the bottom, we want to be high. We want to be 20% or more, or just the higher between the two options. And some things like saturated fat, sodium, and added sugars, we want to be low, because those are things that we generally get too much of and are not especially good for our health. One other quick note, if you go and look in your pantry and pull out a can of something that's been in there for a couple years, it might not have the added sugar separation. It might just say total sugar. And total sugar is the added sugars and the natural sugars. So there are some naturally occurring sugars in fruits and vegetables in particular, and those ones we don't really need to be worried about as much. Those ones don't have the same effects on our body as added sugar. So there's just a little primer in the nutrition facts label. So anyways, looking at some things that you wouldn't necessarily expect to have added sugar do. So just making sure to keep an eye on that. Okay, I'm just mixing this all together. It's coming to a boil. If you don't have barbecue sauce, or maybe your barbecue sauce has a lot of sugar in it and you kind of would prefer not to use it for this recipe or whatever have you, a colleague actually told me today that what they do when they make a similar recipe is they use a low sodium or reduced sodium Worcestershire sauce, and they'll actually sub it in for the barbecue sauce. So they'll just leave the barbecue sauce out. And they said it might be like a tablespoon of the Worcestershire sauce, but it's more to taste. So you mix it all together, give it a little taste, add a little bit more, and kind of work it out that way. And then sometimes with the sloppy joes, the sweetness is a classic way that many of us have tried it. So if you wanted to start with just maybe a teaspoon of brown sugar, just a little bit, maybe a little bit of honey, something to give that sweetness that you might be used to, but in lesser amounts in a way that you can control it. Okay, so this is boiling. I'm going to go ahead and turn it down to a simmer. And we're just going to let it cook until the tomatoes break apart a little more. Maybe the meat breaks up a little bit more. The carrots and all the veggies are really soft. And that really sloppy texture that we're going to look for in our sloppy joes. Okay. So while that's cooking, I have one more bell pepper tip, recipe, experience that I would like to share with you all. And that is making your own roasted bell peppers. So you might have seen these sometimes at the store, or see it when you're out to get pizza. It's a pretty popular topping, I think. This is a way that you can make it yourself. And all you need is a bell pepper. You can use any color you want. And it will add like an extra smokiness, some depth of flavor to your dish. So I like to make these whenever I have an extra bell pepper. I'll roast it up, I'll slice it, I'll put it in a mason jar and leave it in my fridge for whenever I need it and want to use it. Don't leave it more than 7 days though. Just be very careful. Okay, So let me angle you down, and this will be on our front burner. Okay, so I've got some good tongs that will allow me to keep my hand away from the flame. And I'm going to turn it on to medium-high. So if you have a grill pan, you could use that. I've also seen techniques to do it in the oven. Maybe if you're roasting more bell peppers, you could do it that way. I'm just going to do one, and I'm going to do it on the stove so you all can see, and it'll be pretty interesting. So I've done nothing to this except for wash it. And we're just going to hold it on top there. You can set it down too if you need to like readjust. It just might get a little bit messy on your stove if it kind of pops open. And as always, I am keeping an eye on the chat, so if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to share them on there. Get this out of the way. So for your sloppy joes, again, you can see I made a pretty big batch. You can just add more vegetables. So I used a pound of meat, and then you can always just add a ton more vegetables to stretch it, have it go farther if you're feeding a crowd. Obviously, cook it in a bigger pot. And then it's great. You can have them on English muffins, on whole wheat buns. Sometimes we just have it over like brown rice in a rice bowl. Something pretty simple that will give us a grains group. Because in here we have our protein group and we have our vegetable group, and botanically our fruit group if you're going to count tomatoes botanically. So fun fact, I'm not sure if I've shared this on here before. So tomatoes, because they have their seeds on the inside, are botanically a fruit. However, I believe it was in the 1800s, the Supreme Court ruled legally tomatoes are a vegetable. So there's a fun fact. I think yeah. I forget why it went up to the Supreme Court, but that was their ruling. So if anyone ever gives you a hard time for calling a tomato a vegetable, just tell them you were talking legally. Okay. So you can see it's starting to get charred right up there. And the depth of the char is completely up to you. You will see we actually peel off the skin, just leaving the inside. Sorry, I'm going to readjust. This is a good forearm workout. Make sure you have, proper form. You're keeping your wrist straight. You'll work out in there. Sorry, as I was saying, we will remove the skin, so you aren't going to have to worry about eating, these blackened, burned bits of bell pepper. We remove it and we don't eat that part. So it'll just kind of be the flavor that is put into the flesh underneath. Okay, I'm going to see if I can hold this with my left hand and give our sloppy joe mixture a stir. So it's a pretty rapid boil right now. If you can tell, I'm going to turn it down. We don't need it that high. Go low and slow. Let all the flavors infuse and mix together. You can probably tell this is a bit chunkier than maybe the sloppy joes that you are used to. I think a lot of it is from my zucchini, which you will break down a little bit, but you could always cut your vegetable smaller into smaller pieces. I'll kind of smush it around a little bit. You could even, if you have like an immersion blender, food processor, you could blend half of this, a quarter of it, and that will help it thicken up. I'm gonna leave the lid off now because it is pretty soupy, and if I leave the lid off, it will allow some of that liquid to evaporate and thicken up. You could always just use a little scoop and scoop out some of the extra liquid though. Okay, so this is coming along. So something else I learned, sorry, I'm going back to gardening. I'm really into it today. Something else I learned about gardening, and I don't know if this is gardening specifically up here in my climate or if it's applicable in other places, but you can actually plant crops multiple times. And so maybe that probably seems pretty obvious for a lot of you. But so the weather up here in the fall is really similar to the weather here in the spring. So if I had cool season crops, I think I talked about I grew spinach before. So I grew spinach when it was cooler and when spinach wants to grow. And I planted 20 seeds and I had 20 plants. So I thought that was going to be enough. And it wasn't. I got maybe a cup of spinach leaves. I'm going to blame it on my soil. Anyway, but I get a second chance in maybe about September. I'm going to plant my spinach again and see if I can get even more coming up. So this is blistering. I know I'm kind of keeping you all here a long time while I'm just turning a bell pepper over a fire. So let me give this one more stir. So the way we know that this garden sloppy joe is going to be done is when it's thick enough for our liking. And if you're using a lot of watery vegetables, vegetables with a high moisture content, you might never get to the point if you really like your sloppy joes not super liquidy. So again, like I mentioned, you could, blend some of it up, make it thicker that way, or just, scoop some of the liquid out, or serve it with a straining spoon. It will cook for about 15 minutes is usually what it takes for it to thicken up. Just so you all know. All right, and so this bell pepper, I am going to, I am turning down the wrong thing. Okay, I meant to turn down that one and I turned down this one, so let me turn this one back up. Okay, so the bell pepper. I'm going to just walk you through the next steps. I want it all to get kind of this blistered, charred appearance. Forget my words now. I want it to be all over. And you can really start to smell this. It's very fragrant. Then, once you have it all blistered, set it on a cutting board, something that's, it's okay to get hot. And then you can just put your mixing bowl over it. And this is going to steam the bell pepper. So the bell pepper will be really nice and hot from its time over your stove. We're going to put a bowl over it so it steams. And you could use a metal bowl, whatever you have around. And then once it's steamed for 15 minutes, you can pull your bowl off. Your pepper should be cool to the touch. And once it's steamed, the skin will just slide off really easily like that. So you can peel all the skin off, chop the top off, pull the seeds out like we did before, and you've got your roasted bell pepper. So definitely, if you have a lot of them to do, maybe look at going in the oven. We'll make it go a little bit quicker. But if you just have one, and especially during the winter when it's a little colder and you want to be standing over the stove, this is a good method. All right. I think that covers how I finish everything. The bell pepper you can use for whatever, grind it up into some salsa, chop it up into some salsa. It would be really great. You could put it on your sloppy joes, give it a little bit of more smoky flavor to those, put it on top of pizza, anything that you would use bell peppers for or you would like the flavor for. Put it on a plate with some hummus. It'd be really delicious. And then the sloppy joe mixture, again, we're just letting it thicken up, get to the texture we want. Use whatever vegetables you want. Kind of throw it in there, make a real sloppy mess, and then serve it however you want. Whole wheat buns, which I think is how we are going to have it today if my messenger went off and someone knows that they're supposed to bring the buns home. But you could also use whole wheat English muffin, brown rice, get those whole grains with the fiber in them.
which is pretty great. All right. I think that's everything. Thank you all so much for sticking with me as I worked with some bell peppers today. It was fun having you along. And thank you for listening to my gardening stories, my gardening fails. I think that's a hashtag. All right. Have a wonderful rest of your Thursday and have a fantastic weekend. Hope to see you all again next week.